Hey everyone, this is Alexis, host of The Adam Kiss Show, and today I will be talking with actor, writer, singer, director, and independent filmmaker Adam Kiss. We will discuss movie themes and whether politics should be a part of them. Feel free to comment and share. We would love to hear from you. And now, here's Adam.
Thanks so much for the wonderful introduction. Let's get right into it.
Yeah, of course. So, I'd like to start by asking you about your latest project, My Last Words. And while you were writing this script, or after you had written it, and while you were filming, did you get any advice or outside opinions on the script as well as the message before you actually started doing it, I guess?
So we're starting right off the bat with some controversy. I'm gonna say a controversial opinion because in the modern day we live in a society of everything being overanalyzed. And they have a saying, like if there's too many cooks in the kitchen, you're not going to get any food. And I find that so true because so many things today are done by committee. I mean, especially if you're on a TV show today, they have a staff of writers. Obviously, I mean, they need that. If you're on a movie, a lot of times nowadays, the big movies, they have more than one writer, or either they have more than one writer working on it, or they have had one writer and then they had another writer totally redo the script, and then maybe a third one did some extra polishes, and then maybe they gave it back to the second one, and then they scrapped the whole thing, and then they took parts of it to make this other movie. So that happens a lot these days. What I like is like a real authorship or a real voice. I mean, so many people have talked about that. I know Quentin Tarantino has talked about like how his movies have a particular style. It's kind of its own genre, and you can't compare it to something else, whether you like him or don't. And I find the same is true for me. So the controversial thing I'm going to say is that I didn't really get any advice on it before I started filming. I didn't show it. I mean, I showed it to my mom. I trust her opinions on my writing because she's actually very sharp with that. She knows. She's very knowledgeable about films and stuff, and I trust her opinion that she would have my best interest at heart, which is something that you have to. I don't oppose somebody getting an opinion on their script. If it's people they trust in the industry. I mean, nowadays it's so overdone that you have to get like so many opinions, or they have this thing called coverage where you send it out to strangers and they give you brutal notes and stuff. But the thing is, my scripts have mistakes, stories have so-called mistakes, but I mean, what is a mistake? I mean, in real life things don't always work out so perfectly, like, oh, by this page this has to happen, by this page there's the structure. I mean, life isn't like that. A lot of times, stories just unfold the way they unfold, and they don't necessarily have to have a formula. The same script might work, it might work, the way they want it in the perfect structure, or it might be even something more special if there's not quite that same structure. And, if there's mistakes in my script, or I'm doing things that are so-called wrong, I'd love for them to be there because life has mistakes, and, I'd love for it to be imperfect in my particular way. So that's something that I feel very strongly about, that yeah, I mean, you can get advice, but then you're going to be doing it the way somebody else imagines it, and not the way maybe you imagined it, and you never know, that might be better. And obviously, someone gives you advice, and you might take it to heart and say, "Huh, that's actually a good idea. I might think of it that way, but I'll add this twist that I was thinking on my own." So, I mean, I'm totally open to that. I mean, film is such a collaborative medium. I just feel that you should also have your own voice, and in the modern day, everything is so overanalyzed, overdone, rewritten so many times until it has, it's so sterile that it has nothing, risky in it. Which, yeah, I mean, that's something that I feel very strongly in today's age. Like, you used to have scripts by, one author, and that was the script, and that's what they would film. And nowadays, I mean, can you imagine, Quentin Tarantino saying, "Oh, I'd like for you to read it, and I'd like for you to give me notes and tell me what I should change." No, he says that here's the script, I'm filming this, and he says to the producers, if you don't want this word for word, then I'm going to go to someone else. That's very his style. Now, I'm not as much like that. I don't mind when people change words around, or do a little bit something here and there, as some other people, or like Aaron Sorkin, where everything has to be to the word. But yeah, I can't imagine those people, going and saying, "Oh, just tell me what to change." No, because they're confident in their voice, and obviously, um, everyone's different. Everyone has a different way of working, which is great. But my way of working is kind of just writing it, and in a certain way, who cares what anyone else says? Because it's a piece of art. It's a piece of, if you're writing a book, you I mean, nowadays with a book also, you get so many notes from publishers. But in the past, it would be kind of like, you can't imagine Tolstoy changing something or changing the ending from sad to happy because the publisher said it would sell better. Um,
Yes.
and that's something that I feel that's great going into the modern age, because um, now that I feel like more and more independent movies are once again being made. So it's kind of an era similar to the 70s, when the studio system collapsed, that, more and more independent things. And when you're making an independent movie, you're the boss and you can do what you want, and you don't have a big studio executive breathing down your neck all the time, telling
Yeah.
you what to do.
No, I love that. And I love how your description of over analyzing and also talking about your description as too many cooks in the kitchen. I think that's a great way to describe it. And I've actually never thought about it that way. So I think that's awesome.
I mean, absolutely. And I think that a lot of times, like, for example, I forget exactly when it was made. It was the movie Chinatown with Jack Nicholson. Um, the the head of Paramount, who was producing the movie, they it was Robert Evans, a man named Robert Evans, and he was kind of really in charge. Whereas today it's run by committee and like nobody's really in charge. But the point is, he read the script for Chinatown. He said, "I don't really understand this, but you know what? I trust you, as a director, and I trust you're going to make something good." Nowadays, you can't imagine somebody just gambling and saying, "I trust you. Just do something." And yeah, I have my faith in you. I'm not going to butt in too much. Nowadays, it seems like the producers would always be giving notes, worrying, "Oh, let's do this instead. Let's do this instead." And it's kind of like, again, it's overanalyzing. It's kind of hovering too much and kind of stifling the creativity, I feel.
Yeah, and going on with that, you know, why do you think they haven't I feel like a lot of people are seeing that a lot of movies that are being made are kind of like redone or remakes, and there aren't really new ideas coming, like new ideas for writers. And there's so many people that want to make movies, have ideas, who are just aspiring filmmakers who have great ideas that are unique. Why do you think the Hollywood studio system, why haven't they since they are kind of remaking a lot of movies, why haven't they taken a chance on some of these new ones, just for the sake of having a new idea or having a new movie?
Well, I think it goes back literally to what I said before, that there used to be that it was more like one or two or three people in charge, whereas now it's all by committee. And even if somebody very high up believes in a project, they still have
Yeah.
to pass so many other people. And it's all about, it's become a little too material, as opposed to artistic. I mean, in the past, what they used to do, big studios, was they'd have these big uh kind of big movies, like what the Marvel movies would be today, where they knew they'd be successful, and then they would say, "Okay, so now we can afford to take some risks, and we can afford to take risks on these other movies." But nowadays they say, "Wait a minute, what if we just make those movies and don't take any risks ever?"
Okay. So nobody's wanting to take the risk, which is kind of sad because filmmaking kind of is kind of a, anything with like filmmaking, storytelling, it is kind of risky. And that's kind of what makes it like unique and makes it exciting, is because you never know what to expect. Um,
Exactly.
and so, and like you're saying, it's kind of taking away the art. So, I love that. I love that description. And yeah, I guess now I'd kind of like to go on and get a little bit more, I guess now controversial on our second question, and that is, do you believe that movies should be a tool for pushing a particular message?
Well, I don't know. That's obviously a complicated question. Um, there's no simple answer to that. So I mean, let's go through it. Let me talk through it and see if I come up with something, some big revelation for everybody in the world. Um, well, so they used to have this saying, which probably not many people would understand today, that I think it was on the gates of one of the big studios, whether it was MGM or another one, that if you want to send a message, go to Western Union. And the whole point is that Western Union used to be something to send messages with. I mean, nowadays we can't even imagine what that is. Um, but the point is that, I mean, for example, if it was MGM, that would make sense because the whole logo is Ars Gratia Artis, which means art for art's sake. That's the Latin for that. And I believe very much in that, art for art's sake. A movie or a book or any piece of literature, any piece of art in any way, it should just be there for itself. It doesn't need to be justified by having a particular message, which I think is great. I mean, having said that, so that's an old school approach. And even in those days, writers in movies put across various messages. Uh, but what I like is when a message is subtle, when the audience can decide for themselves. I mean, so many people have talked about this. I know Martin Scorsese has talked about this, that you can't like lecture an audience. You have to, you know, show, don't tell. You have to like show something and let them make a decision. The audience has to feel like they're deciding what to think about something. So it can never be so overt, I think. And I think that the best movies, you can have several different interpretations. Um, I know even somebody who probably you don't know the name, or many people don't know the name because he's not really a famous director, but Douglas Sirk. He was a director in the 50s, 60s, 40s, and he was originally from Germany. And I remember he directed a lot of, what you would call, melodramas or soap operas in the 50s, especially. He did a lot of movies with Rock Hudson, in particular, he's known for. But, like, for example, All That Heaven Allows is a great movie that he did. But the interesting thing is that I remember seeing an interview with him where he said, you know, if you're lecturing the audience or if the message is so clear, then you know you're making a bad movie. That's not a real movie. That's a lecture. He said something along those lines, and I find that to be so true. And you should absolutely, if you have, you know so many great movies have, like, so many war movies are really anti-war. So many, there's so many tragedies that have a message about society, or class systems or this and that. And it really touches you and it really leaves you thinking, which is, I think, what a movie should do. So in a certain way, yeah, a movie should be in and of itself just a movie, a great story. I mean, that's all you need to make a movie. It should be a great story, and it shouldn't have to have a particular message. Just a great, simple story, and that's what movies are all about. Or it can it can be that same simple story, but it can have a message, and it can be a simple message, and it can be several different messages to several people, which is, I believe, the best possible thing. So I kind of have a very positive view of all of this. I think that really there's no wrong answer. Um, Obviously, it can really be yes or no to that question.
Yes, no, I love that. I think it's really neat, and I think a lot of people. I've talked to several other people who have done the same thing. Kind of, they're like, well, we want to leave our ending, the ending of our movie, open to, like, different views. Like, let people decide, because that makes it fun. It gives the audience kind of like a part in the, a part of it, of the story.
Absolutely. That's a whole other thing, leaving an ending ambiguous, which can be interesting, but which is absolutely a wonderful thing. But I was talking more along the lines of, leaving just the message that you get from it doesn't have to be so overt, maybe.
Yes, no, I love that. That's awesome. Yeah, so I guess, you're kind of talking about, we were talking about, messages, you know, messages within movies. But what about politics? Do you think they have any place at any time in a movie?
No. Next question. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, no, I mean, I think that, politics is it's so much against art, it's just like you think, yeah, again, it kind of goes back to the last question that, should movies have a message? I mean, it depends. I mean, as long as you're doing it the right way, as long as
Yeah.
you're focusing on the art, um, and who knows what politics even means these days? I mean, I can't even define what politics is. I mean, I'm still old school where I think politics is people running for office. Uh, uh, yeah. So I again, I don't think that politics is art. So yeah, I don't think that it has any place, good or bad, in art of any kind.
Yeah. Yeah, going along with that, why do you think why is that such a common thing nowadays? I mean, I know kind of our time period that has a lot to do with it, but why do you think and I understand you're talking about like a lot of the committees, because I'm sure a lot of these writers don't really have, they have their ideas, something maybe that's, near and dear to their heart. Why do you think the studios are asking for so many political messages when it's already when people are having such a hard time talking about it already? Because I mean, me personally, like when I watch a movie, I kind of want to escape. I want a fantasy world. I don't want to have to think about what's going on. So why do you think they are so focused on politics right now?
Um, well, I can't really speak to what, other people think. I mean, all I think is that we should focus on telling great stories, no matter
Yeah.
what. Having focusing on a story, just telling a great story with a great beginning, middle, and end that touches an audience. And yeah, again, I can't speak to anyone else. I can only speak to what I want to do. And yeah.
Yes, of course. Yeah. Yeah. So going along, now I'd like to ask, kind of, I guess, since we've been talking about, what we don't want, what we don't want in movies, what do you think, in modern movies, what do you think is missing today?
Okay, no, that's a very good question, actually. I think that what is missing, honestly, and this is kind of a theme for today, is that sense of risk of doing something, that is not just a little independent movie that takes a risk, like kind of like they used to. And I'm not saying that they always used to take risks. There's been ebbs and flows in the industry, where there was more creativity, less creativity, where producers were more stifling to directors and filmmakers versus when they were more lax. And obviously, it depended on the studio, it depended on the specific situation. But yeah, I think what's missing is just the risk. I think what's missing also is that a lot of movies can feel kind of sterile. Like, you've seen this movie before,
Yes.
which is great sometimes. I mean, for example, in the James Bond movies, it's wonderful. They have a formula, great, and it's great every time, and you know what to expect, and they add twists to the formula. But those are great movies. Certainly in the past, I loved the early movies of those, but they 100% stuck to a formula, and that can be great too. But sometimes it works better than others, I guess. I mean, so in terms of just like when it's really just the same thing, they aren't taking any risks at all. It can be great, but it can also be, you can do different things, or you know, you can do a dialogue heavy movie as opposed to just an action heavy movie, and it doesn't have to be just the extremely low budget independent project. I think what it is nowadays films are either $300 million or extremely low budget, and there's very little middle ground, and I think that's what we need again in today's world.
Yeah, I love that. No, that's great. Yeah, so I have two more questions I'd like to ask. First of all, what would you say makes a good story, or what should movies nowadays, if you could give advice to other aspiring filmmakers, or even to the multi-billion, industries like the studios, what would you say makes a good story, or what would you wish that they would write more about?
Absolutely. So my message to all the big studios who are very tuned into this interview we're doing right now, that they're all watching very intently. So I have to be careful what I say to them. Um, no, I think literally just you said what makes a good story is the question.
Yeah, what would you say makes a good story? What do you think?
Absolutely. So for me, every story is a love story. And I don't, it doesn't, when I say that, I don't mean that every story has to be a conventional love story. It doesn't have to have any romance. It doesn't have to have anything like that. But it has to be a love story about something. Like,
Uh,
it doesn't have to be about two people, a love story. It just can be about somebody who loves something, or is trying to achieve something, or something like that. I believe that, and that's something that I believe that not every movie is today. Certain movies are only focused on, technical aspects or something, or they can get so caught up in just like the technical aspects of filmmaking and not so much in creating a great story, which I believe the story is first and foremost. I mean, you can have you can have a wonderful story photographed terribly, it looks terrible and stuff and it works. Or you can have an absolutely terrible story and it's photographed wonderfully and it doesn't. So at the end of the day, I mean, I know Francis Ford Coppola. He also mentioned something like this. That I mean, he's the director of The Godfather, Apocalypse Now, so many great films. He mentioned something like that, I believe, when I listened to him in an interview. And he mentioned that he started kind of in the theater, directing actors that way, and he felt that was so much better, before. I mean, as Orson Welles said, you can learn everything about making a movie on the technical side in a day and a half. And that's an exaggeration, but what's really important is the substance of directing the actors, writing the script, having a great story, and then really the other stuff is just gravy. I mean, the movie Breathless, starring Jean-Paul Belmondo, directed by Jean-Luc Godard, is one of my favorite French movies. It's from 1960, and the cinematography is very rough. It's filmed like a documentary. I mean, there was a very small crew. It looks objectively, you would say it looks terrible, but that's what makes it great. And that the substance is there and it's interesting. So yeah, those are my big words of wisdom.
I love that. Yeah, I think that's a great way to end the session. I think that's really neat, and I've always believed that story is important, most important. And it's neat to hear other people say the same thing. And I think a lot of people, like you're saying, a lot of people think, obviously you need to learn like the technical side, but a lot of times people are so worried about learning that, even like at schools and film schools, they're so worried about learning the technical side and the story. They have a story idea, but they don't keep working on that. And there's so much you can do, because there's just like a million different ways you can end a story, you can add to it. So I like that you
Uh,
point out.
Absolutely, and I know that they're based on one question you wanted to ask last time that you didn't get to, right?
Oh yes, I completely forgot. I'm so glad you remembered. We recently
Well,
ran.
I remember because you told me to remind you since we didn't have
Yes,
time.
yes. Yes, in our last episode, we didn't get to finish because we were with our accents, and we did a video. If any of our listeners were following us on Instagram, we did a video about you voice acting Arnold Schwarzenegger. So could you please give us a live voice acting session of Arnold Schwarzenegger?
Absolutely, I'll think of something to say. So, Arnold, this is for you. My name is Arnold Schwarzenegger. I'm a bodybuilder, actor, movie star, two-time governor of California, and I'm telling you now to get to the chopper and to listen to our podcast now. Do it now.
I love that. I love that. Now, since we have, I guess, a few more minutes, I'd like to just say one thing, since we did kind of just jump to this. What what is your favorite movie that he's, I know him mostly from the Terminator. So is there one movie that stands out to you that he's been in, or what is it that you like about his acting in particular?
Well, he's a Schwarzenegger is great. He's really a showman. He's very aware of his audience. He knows how to give his audience what they want. Um,
Yes.
Great guy, very motivational, very inspirational. With his bodybuilding career and being from Austria, coming over here, making it in the movies. So he's definitely always been a big inspiration for me. He definitely goes for it. Um, and yeah, I mean, controversial opinion. I prefer Terminator 2 to Terminator. Um, I think that Terminator 2 is probably definitely one of the best movies. I also love his comedies like Twins. Um, I think that's a great one with Danny DeVito. He did a lot of great comedies: Twins, Kindergarten Cop. Um, and the great thing is that a lot of so-called like highbrow cinema lovers that they would look down on movies like that, and I think no, good movies are good movies, and movies are meant to entertain. So I'm not one of those snobby people who says, oh, it's only the classics, or only very sophisticated cinema. um, no, I think that cinema comes in all shapes and forms, and at the end of the day, from the ancient Greek plays, tragedies to the circus, it's all entertainment. So um, that's entertainment, as they say.
I love that. That's a great way to end the session. That's awesome. Thank you, Adam. again for speaking with us. Let me go ahead before we finish and list all your social media platforms so our listeners can find you and follow you, as well as your movie. You can find Adam on Instagram at Adam Kiss Productions. He also has at Adam another Instagram profile at adamkiss.official, and his movie profile at My Last Words Movie. TikTok, you can find Adam at Adam Kiss Official. Facebook and YouTube at Adam Kiss Official, and of course that's where this video will be uploaded, among other Spotify, other podcast platforms. TikTok at Adam Kiss Official, Facebook and YouTube. Did I just repeat that? I feel like I just did. Yeah, we've got to give us TikTok, Facebook, and YouTube, and Twitter. Sorry about that. At Real Adam Kiss, and that's uppercase R, uppercase A, and uppercase K. You can also find Adam on IMDb or at his website, adamkissofficial.com. And thank you again, Adam. We will be posting this next, I guess, following Monday. Yeah, and on Spotify, you can find them, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and pretty soon Apple Podcasts as well, and Google Podcasts. Yeah, so I look forward to talking.
Every platform, every news platform playing
yes,
on
every news. Yes.
Yes, but absolutely. Thank you so much, everyone. And I believe I'm just going to be talking in a British accent for the rest of the day. So why not? Cheerio and good day.